chilling out here in Joshua Tree. I drank THC last night. Broke the sobriety streak, but you know what? It's okay. Taking the pressure off myself to be perfect. The view is beautiful. Here we are in the bungalows. This is just a dream of a place. Went to the farmer's market this morning, picked up some salmon, bell pepper, basil, spinach, a lot of good stuff. Celery juice. Gonna get healthy again, or not get healthy again, but finding more empowerment in my decisions, in my choices. It's so remote out here. Feels like you're coming into contact with the divine. It's just so, it's such a mirror as well, because I feel like Mickey just texted me. Let's go. Gonna meet up with Nikki later. Can't contain my excitement. Well, I'm trying to, but yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Yeah, like I was saying, this place is a mirror because I've just been seeing a lot of shadow within myself recently while I'm out here. There's something about the desert, the harsh heat, that is bringing up feelings of survival and feelings of like not being looked after by source, feeling separate than, feeling like there's some sort of threat, scorpions and tarantulas, all that type of stuff. It's bringing that up for me. Just been reflecting a lot. Haven't been really sleeping that well. There's so much I want to say. Where to begin? Let's talk about HVSC and music and school. I had a vocal lesson with Adriana, and we barely even sang. I just got to come clean to her and tell her about how much pressure I've been feeling and how, I don't want to be feeling like I'm always pushing and reaching and striving to become this thing, pop star or whatever. Really, in my heart of hearts, I want to be a vocal coach, and I want to go to Santa Barbara Middle School and help kids with becoming their own artists and starting their journeys. And I think that's the next phase of my life. And I've gained enough wisdom to know now that just because it's something that I'm imagining doesn't mean that it has to happen that way. It's just, there's a sense of freedom and ease and bliss that comes with that vision of going in there and being as much of a mentor as I can from all of the stuff I've learned at HVSC. And I'm letting go of this feeling of that, like I'm not enough, or I don't know enough, or I haven't experienced enough to be a coach, because I do feel like after this term it's time to step into that role. And that's not to say that I want to let go of performing, because it truly is the art form that I love the most. It is so incredible, just finding ways to embody music and finding ways to communicate music and finding ways to try on different characters and be an actor and experiment. I love that aspect of it. And then being able to share it with an audience and connect with an audience is something that I am still so passionate about. Songwriting, I'm still unclear, because I feel like I'm blocked. I feel like I'm blocking myself in some way. I feel like I'm not allowing myself to really explore that avenue as much as I can. But you know what? Maybe it's just not the right timing right now. Maybe that's just not where my focus is naturally meant to be. And, I put so much pressure on myself to be this songwriter, but I'm starting to feel that, like, you know what? That's okay. I can let go of that right now. Right now, at least. I talked to Adriana, and she said we could get a mentorship set up where I could go in and shadow Sizzy in her songwriting sessions, and I think that would just be so phenomenal. That is something that does excite me very much. So it's not that I'm letting it go forever. It's just that, I'm just following the flow of my excitement and not having to force myself into a box. It's crazy how much I've grown at HVSC. It's unbelievable. It's surreal. Because I can remember thinking back on this journey, first meeting Adriana and seeing all the marketing for the school and seeing Ron and Jeffrey from a distance and seeing how they're talking about, artist development and what does that mean, and, crafting your story and honing your craft and all these different sort of things. I can remember seeing that from a distance, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I've been thinking about Ron a lot, because Ron to me represents a very fatherly figure that it's been a journey for me to learn to trust him, because I think my greatest fear is criticism and being told that I'm not good enough. I think that's my biggest wound. And so, week after week to come into class on Monday and Wednesday nights and to step on stage and show and just be so vulnerable, it's been such an exercise in trust. There's so many crazy stories that I feel like, I'm recalling now, that those are golden experiences that I'm going to be able to share with people that I'm going to coach. Like I remember there's this one memory that I had that just came back, which is, we did this whole class one day, because normally we get to class and, we might have a little chat or listen to music, or, no two classes are ever the same. There's not ever really too much of a structure, but normally we do get up on stage and start singing. But this class, he brings in this big TV screen. He said, class is going to be a little different today. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. And I feel a little relieved, because I'm like, okay, maybe we're not singing today. Because secretly deep down, I'm like, every time it is such it's just so uncomfortable to get on stage and just to know that you're going to be vulnerable to criticism, I guess. I'm playing with that word vulnerability because I'm questioning the concept of vulnerability. But so he brings in this TV and he starts explaining, because there's this artist named Shelby who had been a guest mentor and performer the previous term, who I was so inspired by because she's so amazing. And she had been one of Ron's students for some years when she was a youth. And I remember earlier Ron had told us the story of how Shelby, back in the day, there was like, Ron used to run this class with some other mentor who I actually really want to ask him about. And what they would do, they had like 30 singers and they made this list every week, and it was just a ranking, like in the fucking Hunger Games. And if you were the best singer, you would be ranked number 1. If you were the worst singer, you'd be ranked number 30. And so Shelby was always ranked number 30, or at least down in the bottom. And Ron was telling us that she would cry, but over time she eventually worked her way up to being at the top of the class. And that just further, it strengthened my belief that I could actually do this, because that is the crux of my story, is that I didn't have the natural talent or the upbringing that would logically lead to a career in the music industry as a performer, as a singer. And that's the message that I want to convey, is that if you want to do this, if you want to be a performer, if you want to be a singer, then you can do that. And it doesn't matter where you came from. Much like Remy from Ratatouille, anyone can cook. Anyone can sing. So he brings in this collection of old photos and videos on his iPad that he airplays to the TV. And it's her entire story from, when she was very young to pivotal moments in her career when she's singing her own original songs through gut-wrenching tears. And up until when she's performing in that room at the record label to just get her first deal, to get signed. And so he's walking us through this entire story, and he's just inspiring us and saying, like, look, this is where she came from and this is where she got to. Essentially implying that it doesn't, like, you can do it. You can do it. And so at the end, we're all fired up and so inspired, but then he puts away the TV. He puts everything to the side. He says, okay, now you're going to sing. And so he sets up this entire expectation, this entire vibe in the classroom of this is what it's like to be in that record deal. Because that video of when she's performing to get signed, it's a room full of these executives with just like blank faces, arms crossed, just staring at her. And she's just doing her thing. And that was his point, is that you have to be delusional, you have to be arrogant to step in that room and do that and truly not give a fuck about what any of those executives are thinking. So that's the entire atmosphere in the room. And then he says, okay, now you're going to get up and sing. So it's as if now that we are standing up and singing for that record deal, because that's the headspace, the emotional space that we've been put into. That's the imaginal space that we're entering. And keep in mind, at this point in my journey, I've gone through one term plus a little more of actually getting on stage and doing this. And now it's as if after one term, I'm getting up and singing for a record deal. Because as much as Ron, as I've learned about him in this one and a little bit terms since then, as much as I learned about him, he still gives off a sense of not being fully... He has a masculine sense of like, if you fuck up, he's going to tell you. And he's not going to sugarcoat it. And he's not going to necessarily care if your feelings get hurt, because his prerogative is that you become the best that you can be. And so it's this vulnerable situation where it's a different thing if on a regular Monday or Wednesday night you're getting up to sing because the stakes are lower, but now the stakes are like you're singing for that record deal and Ron is the executive. So he goes, all right, who's going to go first? And I get up and I start to sing Creep. Completely a cappella. The room is completely silent. And he's just sitting there with his arms crossed, looking at you like you're in that fucking room. And my pitch was shaky, timing's off, and it's the most nerves that I've ever felt singing, ever. Even though it's the same classmates, there's probably 3 classmates, Adriana's there, Ron's there. And something I've been thinking about too is, he's told us that the most difficult environment to perform in is in front of 3 or 4 people. With fluorescent lighting, there's nowhere to hide. And after I get done, so nervous, shaking, but I'm just trying to fake my way through it and act as confident as I possibly can. He just looks at me with a little bit of smile and says, okay, thanks for sharing that with us. And then I sit down. And then the rest of the students go. And that was the end of class. And so the methodology of his teaching, this is what I want to bring to Santa Barbara Middle School. The methodology of the teaching is that if you can imagine yourself in that situation and perform in that situation, then you're writing a potential future for yourself, because all successes or failures, all outcomes are initially born in the mind. The Empire State Building was initially born in someone's mind. The iPhone was born in somebody's mind. So in order to manifest an outcome, you have to be able to imagine it first. And the more that you can immerse yourself in that environment emotionally, mentally, the more that you can be that version of yourself and live that version of yourself and live in that outcome, the more you're going to be able to manifest that outcome, because manifestation occurs on a gradient. The more that you embody that feeling state, the closer you are to the manifestation, and everything's possible. And so he simulated this for us. And now looking back, it's fucking brilliant coaching. And I'm so thankful.